When we hear the phrase Wild West, we imagine fearless cowboys, noble sheriffs, and saloons where the characters drink whiskey and play poker. But the real story of the Wild West doesn't smell like gunpowder and romance. She smells of sweat, dirt, scurvy, and despair. It all started with one small yellow grain of sand that drove hundreds of thousands of people crazy and changed the world map forever. Today we will tell you the real, unvarnished story of the California gold rush. Who actually made a fortune while the rest were dying in the mud? Spoiler alert, they weren't gold diggers. January 1848. California is a quiet, sleepy land on the outskirts of the continent. American pioneer John Sutter decides to build a sawmill on the American River. He hires James Marshall, a carpenter. And so, on a cold morning on January 24th, while checking the exhaust duct of the wheel, Marshall notices shiny grains on the bottom. He takes them in his hand. The metal is soft, heavy, and does not tarnish. It was gold. Sutter and Marshall wanted to keep it a secret. But is it possible to hide something that drives people crazy? Rumors began to spread, and then the man who understood the essence of the gold rush better than anyone else comes on the scene. Sam Brannan. He was a Mormon, a newspaper publisher, and a marketing genius. After learning about the gold, Brannan did not run to the river with a sieve. Instead, he bought up all the shovels, picks, and basins in the area. Every single one of them. And then he filled a bottle with golden sand, went out into the streets of San Francisco and started shouting, "Gold! Gold on the American River!" It was a stroke of genius. The real hysteria started with that scream. Brannan bought shovels for 20 cents, and the next day he was selling them for $15. He became the first millionaire of the Wild West without mining a single ounce of gold. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of people have left their jobs, families, and homes for California. A real hell awaited them. Deadly diseases on ships rounding Cape Horn, and endless, parched prairies. Many never made it. Imagine that you got there. You're in California. There is a lot of gold, but surviving in the Wild West without laws and sheriffs turned out to be more difficult than getting to it. The law of the jungle and the law of an absurd economy reigned here. When you arrived at the prospector's tent camp, you realized that your money was worthless. The purchasing power of the dollar has fallen hundreds of times here. A glass of water in a drought could cost $100 in today's money. One egg costs $25. A loaf of bread is $10. A bottle of regular whiskey went for fabulous sums. Gold diggers who mined $20 or $30 worth of gold in a day spent $40 in the evening just to eat and rent a place to sleep. It was an endless, vicious circle. And yet the passion for profit made people work hard. But how exactly did they get the gold? It was hard physical labor based on the simplest physics. Gold is heavier than sand. At first, ordinary basins were used, the pan-panning method. The gold digger scooped dirty water with sand, rotated the basin at an angle, the water washed away light particles of earth, and heavy gold sand settled at the bottom. When there was less surface gold, the engineering of the Wild West became more complicated. First, there were rockers or cradles, wooden boxes that were rocked by passing water through them. Then, gateways. These were long wooden gutters with crossbars. The water from the river was diverted to the lock. Tons of earth were filled in there. The water carried it down, and the gold settled in the depressions. As easily accessible deposits were depleted, corporations stepped in. They brought hydraulic guns. It was the end of romance. Powerful jets of water washed away entire mountains, permanently destroying ecosystems and burying entire villages under tons of mud. So who took home the main wealth of California? The answer is simple: those who sold shovels. While thousands of prospectors were breaking their backs in the icy water, enterprising businessmen were building empires based on their needs. The most striking example is a young immigrant from Bavaria. In 1853, he came to San Francisco to sell thick canvas for tents and awnings. His name was Levi Strauss. Levi quickly noticed the problem. The gold diggers' regular trousers were fraying and tearing at the seams in just a couple of weeks of hard work in the mines. And then Strauss, along with tailor Jacob Davis, came up with an ingenious engineering solution. They took a tough denim cotton fabric, dyed it a marking indigo color, and most importantly, reinforce the places of greatest tension, the corners of the pockets and the fly, with copper rivets. This simple design turned out to be so indestructible that the waist-length jumpsuits flew like hot cakes. That's how the gold rush gave the world Levi's blue jeans. But the miners needed more than just clothes. They needed to store the extracted sand somewhere and somehow send money to families on the East Coast. The roads were infested with bandits, and the mail coaches were robbed every day. This problem was solved by Henry Wells and William Fargo. They offered a service that could not be refused, guaranteed and safe delivery of valuables. They built a network of fortified offices, hired heavily armed guards on their branded stagecoaches, and set up a banking system that worked like clockwork in the midst of utter chaos. You've probably heard the name Wells Fargo. Today it is one of the largest banks in the world, and he was born out of the dust and fear of the Wild West. But every gold coin has a downside. By 1853, the light surface gold had run out. The era of lone miners with basins is a thing of the past. The time has come for ruthless corporations. Heavy machinery and hydraulic cannons were brought to the mountains. Huge jets of water under furious pressure literally washed away the hillsides. Forests were cut down, rivers turned into streams of thick, toxic mud due to the use of mercury. The ecology of the region was destroyed for decades to come. Human cruelty has also reached its peak. When there was less gold, American miners began to displace competitors. The government has imposed a predatory tax on foreign miners, which has hit Chinese and Latin American immigrants. And the indigenous people of California faced a real catastrophe. Their lands were ruthlessly taken away, and the tribes were driven from their usual places. The California gold rush lasted only about 7 years. Most of those who came for their dreams left with nothing, sick or left lying in unmarked graves. But these 7 crazy years have changed the world map forever. To connect the Golden State with the rest of the country, the United States began a grandiose project: the construction of a transcontinental railroad. And the tiny village of Yerba Buena, with a population of 200, has become the roaring metropolis of San Francisco. America has become what we know it today. The gold rush created the main illusion of modernity, the American dream. The idea that anyone, no matter where they come from, can come and become the king of the world overnight. But history is ruthless. She teaches us one simple rule. During the gold rush, wealth goes not to the one who digs, but to the one who sells shovels. If you enjoyed this dive into the real story, please like and subscribe to the channel. And in the next video, we'll look at exactly how engineers tunneled through the impassable Sierra Nevada mountains to build the very transcontinental railroad. See you later.